going on, YouTube? Once again, it's Kennard Vernon Stewart here for the podcast. Actually doing another car cast, man. I like to do these things. I'm actually glad I got my voice back, man. It was a little shaky, man. I even went to the doctor. I'm like, man, I hope I don't have nothing crazy going on, but finally got my voice back, and definitely glad to be bombarding you all with videos again. Go ahead and smash the like button or the dislike button. I'm going to tell you, whenever I do a Bo Nix video, I'm guaranteed to get at least about 4 to 5 dislikes on that video, which is cool. I get it. You know, I have this, the perception is out there that I don't like Bo Nix and I'm bashing Bo Nix. But go ahead and do whatever you want to do in that regard. And there's certain videos that actually get shared. I hope you guys go ahead and share the video to any of your social media outlets that you feel compelled to do so, as we continue with our coverage as we've done over the past few years over Auburn football. Really have enjoyed doing this. I mean, this is something that I started even back on Facebook, and I thought about it. You know, I talk about Auburn every day to somebody. Now, when I moved to Georgia, it was a situation where I couldn't talk about it as much. It was usually from a rivalry standpoint where I'm talking trash about Auburn with Georgia fans, which, made me realize how much this rivalry is really heated. I'm not going to go out and be crazy and say that this is bigger than the Alabama game, because I don't think it is to Auburn fans. I think Auburn fans are absolutely elated by beating Alabama in any form or fashion. You can see the rivalry talks in no matter what sport is being played. I mean, you talk shit about Auburn beating Alabama in equestrian, so this rivalry is pretty real. Make sure you leave a whole bunch of comments. We're going to be talking about Bryan Harsin in this video, and most importantly, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. And as always, it's great to be an Auburn Tiger, War Eagle. Now, the SEC, surprisingly, I will say surprisingly, I thought that the coaches of the SEC would kind of sort of get a pass in the COVID-19 pandemic season-wise. They were doing all they could just to even field a team, just to even make games happen. A lot of distractions out there, but some institutions saw fit to get rid of their current coaches, which I thought was, like, when I got the news about Gus Malzahn, I was shocked. I was really, really shocked. Auburn going 6-4, not a stellar season, but I really genuinely thought that Auburn would actually give Gus Malzahn one more year. But apparently there was some, information that Allen Green and the rest of the administrators at Auburn saw to where, it just didn't make sense to continue this. Auburn had been on a downslide offensively, and this is supposed to be, Gus Malzahn is supposed to be one of the better offensive minds in the modern era of college football. And it just seemed like there was just such discord between he and whatever offensive coordinator he brought in. I thought the smart move, the chess move, would have been to keep Rhett Lashlee, because I really like Rhett Lashlee's play calling style. I really like what Rhett Lashlee did with Sean White. He wasn't able to develop Jeremy Johnson to the point that I thought they should have developed him. Maybe that was a personal thing with Jeremy Johnson. Who knows whether Jeremy Johnson just wasn't, sometimes guys just don't have it. Got the physical attributes, have the ability. But sometimes, when you talk about decision making and you talking about taking command of a team, that's a really big task. Jeremy Johnson, one of the better quarterbacks in Alabama, at least ratings wise, as he came out of high school, but it just didn't transfer over into Power 5 football. Now, the thing was, when Jeremy Johnson came off the bench and wasn't really pressured, the game really wasn't on him. He actually did pretty good. You look at the game again. I'll say this: the games where he didn't have anything to lose, he really did well. Especially looking at the game against Arkansas in I think it was 2014. And then one of my favorite games of Jeremy Johnson was the game against Texas A&M on the road in 2016, I think it was. No, it might have been. No, it was actually 2015, I think, where 2016. Nope. Hold on, let me make sure I got this right. 2015, did they have Javon Robinson? Nah, they had Cameron Artis-Payne in 2015. And then 2016 had the late surge by Javon Robinson. No. It was 2014 with Arkansas, where he had the Arkansas game. Then 2015 with Cameron Artis-Payne and Javon Robinson. Excuse me. Javon Robinson was actually in 2016. But either way, when Jeremy Johnson didn't have the pressure on, I really thought he was a really, really good quarterback. Which leads me to even with Bo Nix, for example. Bo Nix performs relatively well against equal or maybe a little lesser talent when that pressure is not on. You know, talking about the Arkansas and the Ole Misses and the Mississippi States of the world. But then when it's high consequence, games like Georgia, he did pretty well against Alabama in 2019. But as far as those high consequence games, Bo Nix usually doesn't answer the call. Now, I want to do a Bo Nix video later, but I'm just going to bring a point because I want to talk about Bryan Harsin. But Bo Nix, his level of improvisation. Now, when you have a bad or a struggling offensive line, for one, your coaches do need to put you in a position to be successful. And I don't think the Gus Malzahn era did that for him all the time. You have a quarterback that doesn't necessarily trust his offensive line, so you got to do some quick stuff. And you got to do some quick stuff down the field, kind of like what they were trying to do in the LSU game early. All this slow developing stuff, that's not what you want to do with a somewhat anemic offensive line and a quarterback, obviously, that doesn't trust his offensive line, okay? So fast forward to 2021, we're still kind of talking about the decision-making aspect of Bo Nix. But on the Bryan Harsin note, Bryan Harsin, brand new Auburn coach, and a guy that was really successful at Boise State. Now, mind you, he did inherit a pretty good program. And that's something that I want to bring to the attention of the Auburn fan base. He did inherit a very good program with Boise State, as they had been a mainstay for about 20 years. Because for the past 20 years, you're not a team that's just trying to adamantly schedule Boise State, because they play very physical and they always play up to their competition. Has some key wins over the last few years to really put this program on the map. Bryan Harsin at 60-plus wins, a couple of Mountain West championships, was the best recruiting coach in that conference. Recruited, not necessarily transcontinentally, but really did push the envelope in the California market, the Florida market. So he knows all about finding diamonds in the rough. And all of the recruiting efforts has been seen even in his new effort at Auburn. Almost every day, you see it popping up that Bryan Harsin is targeting this guy, targeting that guy. Will he get him? Probably not. Because a lot of the reasons why he probably won't get these guys at the onset is because I think at this point, folks want to see the body of work. They see the poise. They see the potential. They see this guy as a really good, has good showmanship as far as coaches goes. He really presents himself very well. I was kind of looking at how he presented himself in the A-Day game. He appeared to have control over the situation. He doesn't unlike Gus Malzahn showed his emotions all the time. And a lot of times he showed emotion in a really frantic kind of way. You know, you see him kind of biting his fingernails and looking real crazy, especially on third down and very consequential third downs. And then like when Smoke Monday got kicked out of the game for the Georgia game, you could just see that emotion, which I mean it was in his right to do, but as a leader on the sideline, you have to maintain your composure. And I don't think Gus Malzahn always did that. But as we get to the meat of what this video is about, I happen to look at on 24/7 where they ranked the coaches' odds for success in their first season. And like I said before, there was a lot of turnaround this year. Very surprising. Not a lot of revenue coming into college football teams. And for college football teams to be able to pay all these buyouts and then onboard new coaches at pretty decent salaries, you bring on Bryan Harsin, and 24/7 thought that Bryan Harsin would be the fifth most likely coach to be successful in 2021. Based on what I've seen of Auburn coaches that have inherited programs outside of Terry Bowden back in the early 90s, I think Bryan Harsin has the best case scenario of returning players to put him in a position to be relatively successful. Now, I'll admit, here's what I don't want for the Bryan Harsin era. I don't want this guy to put himself in a position to where the ball bounces their way, some miracle stuff happens, kind of like 2010, 2013, and you find yourself in a non-sustainable way in a national championship game. You find yourself in the SEC championship game, and then the next year, the fan base, Auburn fan base's excitement and expectation is through the roof. Next thing you know, you go to next year 7-5, then 8-5. Because look back to 2010, for example. Now, Gene Chizik did the unthinkable as well. He inherited some pretty good talent, I think, from the Tommy Tuberville era. Had to obviously depend on the junior college market. But you have a okay season the first year. Expected 7-5, 8-5, win in the Outback Bowl against Northwestern. Then you onboard Cam Newton. That's 2 junior college transfers in a row. You had Chris Todd the year before, who did I thought pretty well. Arm strength wasn't always there, but he did an exceptional job as the Auburn quarterback. Then you come into 2010, and the ball bounced Auburn's way. In addition to Cam Newton really turning it on, starting the LSU game to where things really started to look solid for Auburn. I personally did not think in 2010 that Auburn had the talent to beat Alabama. I thought Alabama was probably easily one of the best multiple loss teams in the country. And the start that Auburn got to, although it shocked me, I expected Alabama to win the game. Now, I didn't expect them to come out the way they did to where they were virtually unstoppable. But I thought Alabama had the talent to win the game. There's a lot of talent on the field. Probably wasn't justified in being a 2-loss team coming into that game. Then you have the improbable comeback. In that game where the first half, Alabama did not put that game away. And when Auburn was down only 2 touchdowns going into the second half, I was like, man, this thing is about to get real interesting. Auburn dodged so many bullets in that first half. And then first drive score. Put themselves in the position to win. Now a historic win on the road. Actually, the last time Auburn wins on the road at Alabama. Bryan Harsin has the talent to be successful. Do I think we should be talking the SEC championship? I can't say that because, one, you got too many question marks on the offensive side of the field. Who's going to emerge at wide receiver? Xavier Capers didn't even play in the spring game. Nice to have Javaris Johnson back, Kobe Hudson there, Elijah Canion there, and we'll have some guys. I think Malcolm Johnson will be there. J.J. Evans didn't play. So you have some access to talent. Also, running back wise, Auburn wasn't particularly deep in the spring game, but you got Jarquez Hunter coming this fall, who seems to be a bulky guy. Kind of reminds me of Isaiah Spiller at Texas A&M. Kind of have that same size, has that, that same low center of gravity to where he can get some touches with Auburn. Then you look at the schedule. Auburn has a semi-favorable schedule to begin the season with some some FCS schools, some lower-end Power 5 schools, but then got the big trip to Happy Valley. That's a winnable game. That could be a monumental win for Bryan Harsin, especially with all that he has going on defense. I think this is an opportunity for the defense to really be opportunistic to help Bryan Harsin out and get a good win on the road and get a nationally perceptive win on the road as they get ready for their SEC stretch, which includes LSU, Georgia, and a really tough stretch. Got LSU on the road, then you got Georgia back at home, and then you got the stretch after that with Arkansas, Mississippi State, Ole Miss. Ole Miss is actually a game that even last year, I was kind of nervous about that game, but those are going to be some scary little games down the stretch because Arkansas has pride again. Mississippi State has pride again to where they can sneak up on you. Do I think Bryan Harsin will be successful in his first year? I really do, but you got to channel what success looks like. With a brand new head coach still kind of struggling with offensive change, not only changing the offensive scheme, but not having a super duper talented offensive line and having a quarterback that really doesn't. I just want to see Bo Nix get to a point where things just don't have to be favorable for him to be successful. That's all I want. I want to see when the pressure's on, when you need that third down conversion. He's done it before now, don't get me wrong. But when you need that third down conversion to keep the chains moving with an opportunity. Matter of fact, that last drive against Oregon, that's what I want to see out of Bo Nix. Bo Nix was clutch. First game at Auburn ever. He was clutch. If he could have that type of confidence, I think we will be on to something. But Bryan Harsin is literally in the driver's seat to be one of the more successful first-year coaches in Auburn history with all the tools, pretty much not necessarily the tools that Terry Bowden had, but especially on defense. I mean, he's too deep in all positions. And might even be more than that when we factor everybody in. What do you guys think? I want you guys to leave in the comment section. What do you think about the prospect of Bryan Harsin being a successful coach? What do you think success even looks like? What's the record? And I don't want to hear no shit about no SEC championship or no national championship because that's really not feasible. But I want to know real deal in the comment section, what do you think success looks like for Bryan Harsin in year one? That's my time here, guys. Always like talking to y'all. Go ahead and like the video, comment, and subscribe. This is Vernon Speak Sports Talk here on YouTube. Well over 1,000 videos, well over 4,000 subscribers. Really appreciate the support, and it's not going to stop. We're just getting started. As always, it's great to be an Auburn Tiger, War Eagle.